In my last episode, we talked about the reality and fiction behind gold. And today we're going to talk about debt. Okay, what is debt? Well, debt is a weapon used by financial interests to try to get people to engage in activity where the creation of capital is forced. And the portion of that capital is transferred over to the debt collectors. So it's a bit of a scheme, really. And there are some people who follow this stuff throughout history. Lord, I believe it was Nathan Rothschild. You know, if you follow this kind of stuff, way back during Waterloo, in the early 1800s, I believe it was, had this scheme going on where he kind of ran the Bank of England into the ground by telling the British government that England had lost the war with France and that Napoleon was coming to take over, and it plummeted the British pound to the point of non-existence, and he was able to basically buy up the whole country for nothing. And then he created a system of perpetual debt where he basically said, okay, any activity that goes on now, the capital that gets generated starts getting funneled back to me, the owner of the Bank of England or something like that. I don't know all the details of this, and some people don't even believe it's real, but hey, whether it's real or not, the moral of the story is, you need to be careful with financial practices and financial institutions because they can use something like debt to get you to bend to their will and enrich their coffers at your expense. And that's what debt is all about. Debt is all about enslaving people, quite literally, to the will of profiteers. Because profiteers, let's be honest, they don't want to have to spend money on anybody or anything. They just want to increase that dollar amount in their bank accounts. And they don't care who they hurt to do it. These people are pure sociopaths. And debt is the ultimate weapon that basically says, hey, massive people, you can live whatever life you want, but we own the financialization of this whole system here. And if you have to take out loans, borrow money, well, we're going to charge you interest and more money is going to be created and sent back to us. Therefore, artificially maximizing our profits and taking away from yours by lowering the amount of money that you save every month and destroying your credit if you can't pay. It's a way to keep the mass of people in poverty. It's actually a scam. It's a little bit of a Ponzi scheme, really, when you think about it. And it's also a bit of an oxymoron because in doing this, because of the way our currency system is set up, historically speaking, money had to remain limited in order to maintain its intrinsic value. And the more money that's forced to be printed, the less value it has. Therefore, their number may go up, right? They may go from $1,000 to $1 million to $1 trillion to $1 bajillion, whatever. But in so doing, the value of the dollars that they accumulate goes down. So their purchasing power goes down. You see the problem with this? I mean, the dehumanization of people and aside on this matter, the monetary system is being exploited in a way that I'm not even sure the debt collectors realize they're doing. So even if we changed our monetary system, which we need to do, by the way, we have to eliminate the concept of debt. We have to get rid of it. We have to find a way to be able to pay for things in a way that does not result in anybody owing somebody else money with interest. That's a scam. It's a total scam. And there are ways. I'm just now starting to think about it, but the longer we continue to participate in the system of perpetual debt, the harder it's going to be to get out of it. And, there's stuff going on right now. There's debtcollective.org. You can go on there and check that out if you want. There was a really good video that Chris Hedges did with his show On Contact with somebody who's a member of that organization and what they're doing to combat predatory debt in this country, starting with student loan debts, some of them rent and predatory mortgages and things like that. One of the things we would have to do is end the financialization of things like healthcare, education, housing, hell, even business loans. I mean, loans, if they're reasonable, they're fine, but if you over-financialize it, and forced someone who took out, say, $1 million to start up a business, and with the interest charge, you would make sure that they paid you $700 billion for the sake of argument. Well, that's predatory, and it's unfair to the person wanting to start up the business. It's also a way to ensure that competition is kept at a minimum. It's a systemic way of doing that. So this is another reason we got to get rid of debt, because the people who say we believe in competition and capitalism, rah, rah, America, these people understand are monopolists. All right, they're not for freedom. They're not for capitalism. They're for corporatism. They're for neoliberalism. They're for a system that enslaves you to their will and the will of their like-minded friends. So this is not a left-right issue, guys. This is capital versus labor. It's oligarchy versus democracy. That's what we're facing today. And debt is a major weapon used by the oligarchy to destroy democracy and destroy unions, destroy labor. They're basically using debt. They can reduce labor to nothing more than prison fodder, because an increasing number of states are actually engaging in debtors' prisons again, which is supposed to be illegal. But we have a highly conservative Supreme Court who is all about states' rights, and they're just going to let them do whatever they want. So, this is getting really serious. We really need to combat this. We need to engage in economic disobedience. I would urge people to stop paying debts, to be honest with you. Don't pay your rents. Don't pay your mortgages. Don't pay your freaking medical bills. Don't pay your student loan debts. Make your statement. That's my suggestion. Engage in what I guess amounts to an unlawful disobedience, but you have to in this case because the law doesn't make sense, and it's unjust and unfair, and it shackles everybody in the country to the will of a very few people at the top. So, occasionally throughout history, people have had to become the outlaws to get justice. Case in point, Robin Hood, right? I really think that if we really put our heads together and we really banded together as a society, as people who are shackled to this predatory debt system, we could bring it down. Use of the power of the people to bring down capital. Because capitalism inevitably leads to things like this. A lot of people in this country say, we're pro-capitalism, that's America, that's freedom. No, it's not. Capitalism inevitably leads to monopoly power, which destroys democracies and fractures societies and creates a debtor society. And that's not something that's sustainable, not even in the short term. And the short term being in historical context here, not short term as in days or months. I'm talking, I may be talking a generation or 2 or 3 or something. But, debt is something that should not exist in this world, I think, at least not on this scale. And if it does exist, there should be no profit motive attached to debt collection. And it should be a lot more flexible than what it is now. And it shouldn't destroy people's credit and hinder their ability to live life. So, we really need to come up with something. We really need to come together and get rid of this predatory system that is essentially destroying human society on a mass scale.